On the day, Anne's brother placed his hand on my shoulder and told me to grow up and be mature. I had already been one for 3 weeks. He just didn't know what that looked like yet. But he would. They all would. My name is Derek Ford. I didn't go searching for the truth. It found me quietly on a normal morning that didn't feel important until it became the moment. Everything split in two. It was Friday, February 11th. Anne had left her old phone charging in the living room overnight, said something about needing it for backup. At 7:20 a.m., I came downstairs, half awake, made my coffee, and sat at the kitchen table like I had 100 times before. The phone was just there. No reason, no suspicion. I picked it up the way you grab anything when your mind hasn't fully started yet. The screen lit up. No passcode. Notifications still syncing. The backup had finished restoring. And in less than 4 minutes, my entire life rearranged itself into something unrecognizable. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't looking for anything. But the messages opened one after another, like they had been waiting for me. I read the first, then the second. Then I stopped counting. 11 months. 11 months of conversations between my wife and a man I trusted without hesitation. A man I'd built a business with. A man who sat at my wedding and wiped tears from his eyes while telling me I had found the right person. While I was flying back and forth to Chicago, building our company's future, working long nights, missing dinners, believing I was sacrificing for something real. They were building something else entirely back home, something hidden, something deliberate. I sat there for over an hour without moving. My coffee went cold in my hand, but I didn't notice. Every message felt like another piece of something inside me being quietly removed. No explosion, no shouting. Just a slow, suffocating realization that everything I thought was solid had been carefully replaced behind my back. At 8:30 I heard her alarm upstairs. Water running, footsteps, the normal rhythm of our life continuing, like nothing had changed. I stayed exactly where I was. Didn't shift, didn't breathe differently. When she walked into the kitchen, she smiled the same way she always did. "You're still home?" she asked casually. I looked up at her, at the woman I had loved without question for 4 years, and said the only thing that would keep everything in place. "Just tired. Didn't sleep well." She offered to make fresh coffee, asked what I wanted for dinner. I told her to surprise me. We smiled at each other like we always had, and just like that, the last normal conversation of my life passed by without either of us marking it. She had no idea it was over. The days that followed weren't loud. That's the part people get wrong. They imagine shouting, broken plates, dramatic exits. But what happened instead was quieter and far heavier. I didn't feel rage. I felt grief, the kind that sits deep in your chest and doesn't move. Every morning I watched her eat breakfast across from me, knowing what she had done, and she never once flinched. Every night she said goodnight like nothing was broken. And every night after she fell asleep, I walked outside, sat in my truck in the driveway, turned everything off, and gave myself exactly 15 minutes. 15 minutes to feel it all. The betrayal, the humiliation, the weight of understanding that, while I had been building a future for us, they had been using my absence as an opportunity. Then the timer would end, and I'd go back inside like nothing had happened, because by then, I already understood something they didn't. This wasn't a moment. This was a decision, and I was about to make mine. 3 weeks passed like that. Quiet mornings, ordinary dinners, familiar routines wrapped around a reality only I could see. I didn't rush. I didn't react. I moved carefully, like a man walking through a house that had already burned down, deciding what was worth carrying out before the structure finally collapsed. Then March 2nd came, Sunday evening. The Avalanche game was on, something I had been looking forward to all week. And right before the second period, she turned the TV off. "Derek, I need to tell you something." I remember thinking finally, not relief, not anger, just recognition. I'd been waiting for her to catch up to the truth I'd been living in for 3 weeks. "Okay," I said. She was already crying before she even started, which told me everything about how she expected this to go. She wanted emotion. She wanted reaction. She wanted something she could work with. Instead, I gave her stillness. She told me about the affair with Mike, called it a mistake that spiraled out of control. I let her talk. I let every word land. Even though I already knew all of it in detail, she didn't realize I had. Then she said the part that mattered. She was pregnant. 3 months. And just like that, everything sharpened. Not because it surprised me, but because it explained the timing. This wasn't confession. This was necessity. The truth didn't come out because she wanted to be honest. It came out because it had nowhere left to hide. I asked her one question. How long have you known? There was a pause, small but telling. 6 weeks, she said. 6 weeks of sitting across from me at dinner. 6 weeks of normal conversations. Normal smiles, normal everything. While carrying a reality she had no intention of telling me about until she had to. I nodded slowly. Let the silence stretch just long enough to make her sit in it. I need some time, I told her. No yelling. No accusations. Just distance. She cried harder. And I could see it in her face. She mistook my calm for forgiveness. That was her first real mistake. 4 days later, her family showed up. All of them. They walked into my house like they were stepping into a situation they already understood, like they had come prepared to guide me toward the right decision. Her mother, Linda, spoke gently, carefully, about support and compassion and the innocence of the child. I agreed with her. Completely, that threw her off. She had expected resistance, something she could counter, but I wasn't there to argue. I told her I just needed time to decide what kind of man I wanted to be in this situation. She reached for my hand like that settled things. Then her brother Terence stepped in. Different energy entirely. Confident, direct. The kind of man who believes volume equals authority. He told me plainly, stay and I'd be respected. Leave, and I'd be remembered as someone who couldn't handle pressure, someone who walked away when things got hard. He said it like it was advice. Like he was doing me a favor. I listened, nodded, even thanked him. Because in that moment, what none of them realized, not Linda, not Terence, not anyone sitting in that living room trying to shape my future, was that I had already made every decision that mattered. I wasn't standing at a crossroads. I had already chosen my direction. While they were talking about maturity and forgiveness, I had already met with a lawyer twice. The divorce papers weren't an idea, they were ready. Sitting upstairs in my office was a file, filled with documented proof that didn't just end a marriage, it dismantled everything. Mike thought he still had. I had spent those 3 weeks not breaking down, but building something else entirely, quietly, methodically, completely. So, while Terence sat there believing he had defined my legacy in a single sentence, I just looked at him and said, "You're right. I need to think carefully about the kind of man I want to be." He leaned back, satisfied. The room relaxed. They thought the conversation was over. What they didn't understand was this. My silence wasn't confusion. It was control. And the moment they were all waiting for was already on its way. What they didn't see coming was how quiet consequences can be when they're done right. While Anne and her family believed they had time to guide me toward acceptance, I was already finishing what I started. The first call I made, just 3 days after finding the messages, was to a family lawyer. No drama, no hesitation, just facts, timelines, and a plan. She told me something simple that changed everything. Stop talking. Start documenting. So I did. Every bank statement, every shared account, every detail of 4 years laid out clean and undeniable. But the real shift happened when I turned my attention to the business. Mike and I had built it from nothing, and I knew every inch of it, especially the financial side. That's where the cracks showed. Small charges at first. Hotel expenses marked as client meetings. Consistent, repeated 11 months. Worth. I cross-checked everything. Dates, locations, schedules. It all lined up too perfectly. While I was out of town building growth, he was using company resources to fund a secret life. Not just betrayal, carelessness. And carelessness leaves a trail. 22 separate instances, documented and organized, sitting in a folder that didn't look emotional at all. It looked professional. That was the difference. When I brought it to my lawyer, she didn't react emotionally either. She just recognized what it was, leverage. Real undeniable leverage. A clause in our original partnership agreement made it even clearer. Misuse of company assets meant immediate loss of control. No debate, no negotiation, just consequence. So I acted, quietly, precisely. On March 19th, the legal notice went out. Not a phone call, not a confrontation, just paperwork, delivered to both his office and his home at the exact same time. No room to spin it, no chance to prepare. His call started within hours. I didn't answer a single one, not because I didn't have something to say, but because he didn't deserve to hear it. Some people don't earn closure. They earn silence. By the time everything settled, I walked away with what actually mattered. The clients, the work, the foundation we had built. He kept the name. That was it. And a name doesn't carry weight when the trust behind it is gone. The rest unfolded on its own. I didn't argue with Anne's family again. I didn't defend myself. I simply made sure they saw the truth, one conversation at a time. No theatrics, just clarity. And clarity has a way of dismantling illusions faster than anger ever could. The divorce finalized without noise. No scenes, no spectacle. Just an ending that had already happened weeks before anyone else realized it. I started over, but not from nothing. From experience, from discipline, from the understanding that sometimes the strongest move isn't reacting, it's rebuilding. Anne and Mike stayed together from what I heard, but relationships built in secrecy don't always survive exposure. And honestly, that part stopped mattering to me. What mattered was this: I didn't lose everything. I removed myself from something that was already broken. And in doing that, I gave myself something they could never take back: peace.